Hello! Can you guys see me? Hello? I love these live streams. Guys, let me know if you can see me or not. Yep, I'm here. Good. Okay. So, you guys want a good laugh? For the past 12 minutes, I've been talking to myself because I forgot to hit the start broadcast button. I hit start streaming and not start broadcasting. So I get to re-say everything I've said for the past 12 minutes. Yeah. Isn't that great? Oh, man. All right, well, I can't remember everything. So let me scroll back up here in the chat because a lot of it had to do with all my folks here that have been on here. So the first thing I always start off with is always welcoming everybody that's new to this channel. You know, these live streams aren't really, you know, specific to anything in particular. They're just kind of an open chat session. Hopefully you guys are chatting in the chat window so I can kind of pick up on it and share some opinions and talk about it because you guys are pretty much driving the boat. So that aside for a second time, next thing on here is I want to thank the people down below. We got Mark Davis, we got Brad, we got SK3D, and I got a new patron, Run, and I forgot to put him down bottom, so I will mention him multiple times during the stream. And I also know that he's on here, and I've already thanked him about 6 times, but there's the 7th and 8th too. So on top of that, we have friends of the channel. We have DeWitt3D, Golden Jaguar, we have The First Lair. So yeah, that's the first 3 minutes of what you guys missed, and I already said once. I was going through here and I was talking about, let's see here, we were talking about the First Lair. Okay, so I had asked Rich if he could post up a link to the First Lair Discord channel, and I'm going to give a brief description as to why I believe everybody here, if you have not joined it, should join it, again, for a second time. Basically, most of the people here are probably parts of other Discords, whether that be Voron Discord or Polymaker Discord or some other Discord. I will tell you that the First Lair Discord is a lot smaller community. We are very like-minded, and everything tends to work quite well on that Discord. It's not as disorganized of a Discord as some of the other ones. I go onto the Voron Discord every once in a while when somebody pings me for something, but other than that, I kind of stay the heck out of there just because it's way too much happening all the time. So if you haven't joined the Discord, scroll up, there's a link in there. Rich, if you could post another link in there, it'd be great. But basically, I invite you all to go ahead and join that if you haven't. So there's that. Let's give some shout outs and some thank yous and some welcomes to the folks here in the chat. Let's see here. Hey, my watch says I'm now live. You know, that's great. I take this thing off because God only knows what's going to come up on that. So, Rich, how you doing? First Lair, Run, new patron. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Easy Hack, nice to see you. I got a lot of first-time people on here. Lawrence, first time for you too. I've already done this once. John Bima, good day, good day. This is funny. I feel like I'm living Groundhog Day. Let's see here. And then we go through and we're talking about ABS versus ABS versus ABS Plus. And what I had said about that when you guys couldn't hear me or see me, this is for you, Run, is that whatever you're most comfortable with out of those three, ASA tends to be a little bit more money. But if you're familiar and you can print good prints with ASA and you're happy with ASA, go ahead and use ASA. It's not going to buy you anything. It's not going to lose you anything in this particular instance when you're trying to print your Voron parts. Same thing goes for ABS and ABS Plus. You know, some people have difficulty printing one of those three, and one of those three usually is a little bit easier for somebody to print. So any of those three will work just fine. And then Rich made a funny comment, or at least tried to make a funny comment about printing outside. Yeah. And then I mentioned Print It Forward, and I'll mention it again. Print It Forward, if you guys don't know, is a great place to go if you can't print your own parts. And I went into talking about, I should probably now just cut into what it was. So Print It Forward, and then we were talking about your MK3 and whether or not you could, you know, if you can't print the parts, then maybe you shouldn't build a Voron. And I was talking about the fact that it takes 2 sets of, or skill sets to build a printer versus printed parts. Building a printer is a lot like following a recipe. As long as you have good recipe, good instructions, almost anybody could print a printer. There are some points where you kind of have to use your own noggin to figure stuff out, but for the most part, it's following instructions. Printing plastic on a printer is kind of like chemistry, only with a lot of unknowns and, you know, kind of learning something, because there's variables every direction. And you know, that goes out for the manufacturer of the product that you're using. It goes to the printer that you're using, the temperatures you're using, the speed you're printing at, and everything that goes along with that. So even if you can't print your own Voron parts, it's not a bad idea to consider building a Voron printer. You may have to source your parts someplace else. And you know what? Once you have that Voron printer that you built by sourcing somebody else's parts, you'll probably be able to print your Voron parts. All right, so let's get ahead here in the chat. I got it running over here, so when I'm looking over here, I'm kind of looking at the chat. Let's see here. Oh, we got lurkers. He is late. I was not late, I tell you. I didn't go to the bathroom. Oh man, I feel so bad. I need one of those dunce caps. Wow. Let's see here. I'm gonna skip ahead. Actually, and then I finally showed up and. Hope he's okay. Yeah, I'm okay. Howdy up. See ya. Let's scoot around here. Yeah. All right. So I'm skipping right ahead to when I admitted to everybody that I am a fool and I didn't know that I wasn't broadcasting or whatever you want to call this. So fell asleep. Incredible DIY. That's a good one. I was going to ask if you fell asleep on the toilet a minute ago. That has not happened to me before. I do have a very good story about Vegas, but it does not involve a toilet, but it did have involvement of me falling asleep once. But let's see here. Breaking news, US just sent nuclear response team populace in Crimea. Is that real news or is that not news? I don't like that. I'm gonna ignore that one for now. Let's see here. Come join us. Yep, so this is Discord again. So you're getting situation is 10, produce a small room, Windows UV, yep. All right, so the next thing I was doing and what I want to do here is bring us over to this camera right here. And I was talking about where we were at this printer currently, and the fact that this is completely work at this point. I haven't put the panels on yet, but that's fine. You can run these printers without panels on them if you want to. I do suggest you put panels on if you are printing with ABS or ASA or anything like that. Looking over at my temp tower, it's melting. But this is 100%. I've kind of gone backwards on the Clipper software on it, just so I could do my series on configuring Clipper. And that particular series is going to be shorter videos, just basically explaining, you know, one or two things about Clipper as we go through. But I'm pretty happy with this build thus far. This is the LDO kit. I've gone over 1,000 times what's involved in this. I have not talked about the fact that I made a boo-boo when I did this, and I did burn out my NeoPixels, which is pretty common from what I understand. I also burnt out my Rainbow Barf, which I'm kind of bummed out about. So that's what happens when you send 24 volts over the wrong pin. Using a harness, it's very hard to trace where those wires are going because it wasn't necessarily meant to do what I'm doing with it. But you know what? You live, you learn, you tell people about it so they don't make the same mistakes, right? Maybe? So, all right. So again, we'll mention this. You guys kind of drive the boat here. So whatever you guys are interested in the chat, if you guys want to talk about it, hopefully it's not about Crimea or nuclear stuff, but 3D printing would be awesome. Let's see here. Look at those Rama idols you were talking about on your stream. Yeah. So, oh boy, I don't know if you... That's supposed to happen, by the way. Rama idlers, they're pretty cool. Actually, let me go back to that camera. So that's these guys right here, for those of whom don't know. These are pretty interesting units. They have front cover plates that are held on with magnets. They have a dual screw tensioning system, so as opposed to a single screw in the middle, they have one on both sides. It's got its pluses and minuses. The pluses are you get equal tension top and bottom. The minuses, good luck getting equal tension top and bottom, because when you tighten up one screw, the other screw doesn't tighten by itself. So when you go to tighten that screw, you got to be really finicky about getting it to the same amount of tightness that your top screw's at or your bottom screw, depending on which one you're doing it with. But I do like the Rama idlers. They were a vast improvement over the original idlers that were on the Voron 2.4, not the R2. I have not built the ones for the R2. Those are a redesign. But on the original 2.4, there were issues with the alignment of the belts to the idler. They were not straight, and it caused some issues, some additional wearing on those belts. That's what the Rama idlers kind of resolved when they first came out. Now, to me, they're just a little bit easier to install, and I kind of like the way they look a little bit better. They're a little bit more slimlined here on the sides. And I think Po' Boy liked these, and I think maybe at some point he might build something like that, and that'd be cool. I'd be more than happy to, you know, answer any questions you guys got about that. So let's see here. It's okay, I talk to myself a lot too. Yep, I do that. Let's see here. See here. I think you got another patron member. Let me look. I do. Nuno. Thank you. Thank you for that, man. I appreciate that. I appreciate anybody that does that, you know. I by no means feel like I'm a panhandler or anything like that. I do this because I like doing it. I talk to you guys because I like talking to you guys. And some point in time, we're going to bring this in a little bit closer, and I'm going to have some method to kind of have you guys join the chat directly and maybe do video and audio if people are interested in that type of thing. And if you are, make sure you leave a comment in the videos or send me an email or anything like that, because it's going to have to be something that we pre-planned. But I really would like to do that. Especially with problems and things like that. I'd almost like to have a call-in show to kind of get the stuff out there to everybody, because, you know, a picture's worth 1,000 words, right? Let's see here. Let's see, voltmeter and resistance test for look like currently eating sesame chicken and watching your stream. I like sesame chicken. It's got to be spicy though, and I like orange chicken too. That's going to be spicy too. You should help you trace what goes up when you're in the future. It should help you to trace what goes where in the future. Okay. Tap, tap, tap. Yes, tap, tap, tap. I like my tap. It works pretty well. Talk about tap for a second. So one of the hurdles I dealt with when I built my tap, I originally got my 50 millimeter linear rail from KB3D. And it wasn't the smoothest linear rail I'd ever dealt with. And I wound up basically complaining a little bit, but it was just kind of clunky. It wasn't good. And on something like the tap, I thought it'd be pretty important to have it there. What I didn't really realize, and it probably would have worked just fine, is how heavy the actual tool head is, especially when it's mounted directly on that linear rail. And in hindsight being 2020, that original rail I had, the 50 mil, would have probably been okay. I've since ordered additional 50 mil rails from KB3D, as well as some stuff from Fabrico, and I've compared the things, and I did find they all kind of had the same amount of preload on them, and I think they'd all work just fine on the tap. Another thing I don't have on my printer right now, since we're talking about tap real quick, is my kinematics mount. Actually, I talked about this while I was talking to myself. I don't have my kinematics mount on here right now, and for the most part, that is because I wanted to do testing with a solid bed, something static for my tap. And basically, once I have a good amount of data, basically when this printer is all put together and I get maybe 100 or 200 hours on it, I'd like to take the data of how accurate the tap has been, and then basically reinstall my kinematics mount and see if that carries over the same, see if there's any inconsistencies between the two. But I wanted to start off first with a static mounted bed. So the tap is off right now. Not tap, the kinematics is off right now, but it will be going back on there, and there isn't anything wrong with the kinematic system. As far as I can tell, the tap worked just fine on it, but again, I want to get that data first before I make any conclusions to hand out to all you. All right. Let's see here. What else we got here? Zaxolator. Hello. How is it going? Did I miss much? You missed about 10 minutes of me talking to myself but you didn't actually miss it because it wasn't up. It was just me talking to myself. And then you missed me admit to everybody I was talking to myself. So that's about all you really missed. We're not doing a ton in the stream. This is just kind of a fun stream, kind of a weekly or a bi-weekly thing. So thank you for entertaining us. You're welcome, sir. Shawdell, hey, how you doing? Let's see here. Shawdell missed me talking to myself. Interested in a call. Interested in a call in our ability to us talk somehow for sure. Incredible. If you want to send me an email, it's on my YouTube channel page, but it's pretty easy. It's Kerm, K-E-R-M, at builditbasement.com. Just let me know you're interested, and then basically what I'll do is I'll start saving that information, and then probably reach out at some point, and then once we have a system in place, maybe be able to send out a link to a few people every time I do something live, so people can come on. Probably be via Zoom or something like that. I've actually already got things set up so I could do it, but I haven't done it off live stream to prove it out yet. So I want to do that before I actually do it on a live stream, because these are bad enough without making them worse and making somebody watch me try to figure out how to make it work. So awesome. I would love to have some people on. I got my tap kits from DFH. I don't know who DFH is. But yeah, let's see here. Those LED holders are great. I have them for 2 of my Vorons and an upscale version 3030 for the rat ring. You talk about the top mounted LED mounts. I do agree, they're pretty cool. They block the light from not going where you don't want it, and they allow the light to go where you do want it to go, which is nice. I like the fact that you can extend them or make them smaller depending on where you want to put them. I think it'd be kind of cool to have some on the front facing back into the printer, but I haven't done that. I currently have a camera mounted up here, which I'm probably going to move at some point, try to get closer to the bed once I get that all situated with the kinematic system. But yeah, the other thing I burnt out on this, or actually I don't know if I burnt out on it because it worked, but it stopped working, was my 4K camera. So that's something I'm actually going to play with maybe today on stream. Who knows? We'll see where we go. Let's see here. Good choice. Good choice. We'll want to see those tap results. Yes. Yeah. I thought better to do the norm, the normal thing with the static mounted bed before doing the tap versus, vice versa. Because honestly, once I have my tap results, I'm pretty sure based on what I saw already, they're going to be just fine. But I want to have kind of some empirical data that, how far or how much of a difference is there, because I did notice the right front corner of the bed when the kinematics mount was on there was a little more flaky than it possibly could have been. I don't think it's going to affect it when it prints, but it's something I did notice, so that's why I want to do that. All right, let's see here. Oh, let's see here, Shadell. Deep Fried Hero. Oh, okay, yes, I know Deep Fried Hero. He has an amazing site and parts are excellent quality. I recommend. Yes, I've heard of Deep Fried Hero. I couldn't put the DFH in my head to figure out what it was. So yeah. So let me jump over to this while you guys are loading that chat up with other stuff. We got this right here, and I got a big printer in the way, and it seems like my camera's a little flaky there, so let's do that. There we go. And I want to talk a little bit about the 4K camera that's on this printer and that is in my hands right here. And I'm going to actually slide this over a little bit so I can better be in the camera shot. Move that Ethernet cable real quick. There's my back panel. For any of you guys that are new and haven't seen that, that's the back panel going on the printer. That's ACM panel, basically aluminum encompassing a plastic panel on the inside, and that's been laser etched with the awesome Voron art there. So that's pretty cool. I think everybody's seen that by now though. So can't wait. That's gonna be the first panel that goes on there. But yeah, so here's the 4K camera by 3DO. This is their nozzle camera. I have 2 of them. This is number 2. Number 1's in the printer not working properly. So I'm going to do a little troubleshooting on this, and first thing I'm going to do is probably hook it up to Windows directly with this camera to make sure this one's working properly. But basically you have a breakout board that is right here, and you have a ribbon cable that's approximately, I don't know how big is it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, about 20 centimeters or 200 millimeters, I would guess. Let's see, because I bet somebody's going to say that is a horrible way to count, but let's check. Let's see how accurate I was with that. Just because I like to do it, because there are some people that would call me out on that. So it is 230 millimeters. So I was off by 30 millimeters by using my thumbs. I know the width of my thumb, dang it. So anyways, that's a 4K nozzle cam from 3DO, and that's pretty simple. It hooks up like that ribbon cable, and then that basically goes into a breakout connector that then goes to a USB port, either on a Raspberry Pi or whatever computer you're using. So what I wanted to do is see if this one's working properly. And I just got the Windows sound, so that's good stuff, right? Should be at least. And let's see here, looking back at the comments. I got Mark Davis here. Hi, Kermit just got here. Hey, Mark, I was talking about you a little bit ago. When I gave a shout out, you missed me being a fool and having a run of about 12 minutes of me forgetting to start the stream while I talked about stuff. So you missed the joke there. But yeah, that's about all you really missed, because these streams aren't really overly informative. But let's look here. Bring this back up again. Let's see here. My Trident has LEDs on the side and front facing back is very bright, almost too bright, in my humble opinion. Well, you can always adjust them down, right? So can it ever really be too bright? I mean, you'd rather have it too bright than not bright enough. You do have an adjustment on there, either in your mainsail clipper or in code. You can adjust that if you don't have it on the GUI. Did you put insulation under the heater on this printer? I don't recall seeing no, I did not put insulation underneath the heater on this printer. Excuse me. I think that provides little, if any, results. There's two things. There's two reasons why you put insulation under your printer. Let me take a drink real quick. That's another reason why I want to have people on here, because talking yourself for hours, it's hard to do. There's two reasons to put insulation underneath your heater bed. One is to try to get your bed to heat up quicker, which we're already kind of fighting against, because we don't want our bed to heat up too quickly and cause it to warp. The second reason is so that the heat doesn't get down into the electronics compartment, which is part of the reasons why I have ACM panels, which again are aluminum on the outsides, which will reflect the heat somewhat, but also insulate it with a double layer of aluminum plastic. So I didn't really think it'd be much use of doing any insulation on that. We're looking to heat up the chamber a little bit too. So, the heat's in the printer. It is where it needs to be. The bed gets warm enough where it's not having trouble heating it up to a certain temperature, or holding it at a temperature. So, could you, should you? Could you? Yes. Should you? That's up to you. I wouldn't, but maybe you would. That's for you, Incredible, in case you didn't figure that one out. Let's see. Thanks for the update. Those things happen. Yeah, they do happen. They're a little embarrassing when they happen, but being able to admit your faults are a good thing. I have him, Justin, for sure, just mentioning. I'm going to, let's see here. I got this other printer. I'm going to stop this real quick over here. I'm doing a temp tower in the other side with another printer that doesn't need to finish, because it is it just doesn't need to finish, because it doesn't need to go all the way. So let me hold my X and Y, get that away from there. There we go. Good. All right. Let's see here. You can insulate the bottom panel facing inward. I did that on my 2.4. Help the heat from the bed in and warm up the chamber. Yeah, you can. Like I said, that's really up to you. I think the aluminum ACM panels will do a pretty decent job of that. I think you're probably losing heat through a multitude of other places, but how hot do you really want your chamber? I think if your chamber is between 60, 65, maybe upwards of 70, you're fine. I think your chamber gets much hotter than that, you're gonna have some other problems with your parts softening up a little bit, especially if you're printing, PLA and things like that, and some electronics aren't doing so well. That's actually one of the big issues that people are having right now. Actually, one of the biggest questions people always ask me is, you know, are you doing CAN bus on this? So one of the bigger issues that people are having with CAN bus currently is with the driver that is on the CAN bus board at the head for the extruder, and those overheating pretty readily. So, you know, having a heated chamber is only going to make that happen a little bit quicker and possibly be a little bit worse. So, you know, keep those chamber temperatures about where you want them. I guess the biggest thing you want to do is make sure you don't have any breezes of air coming through. Again, you can print ABS on a non-sealed printer. Is it difficult? Maybe, but if you figure it out, it's not the end of the world to do that. So having a heated chamber is just a little bit of a plus. So I got this camera. It was read by this, and let me see if I can get it on here. Let's do this. Let's do cam. Let's see here. And yeah, I can't do it without breaking the stream, so I guess I'm not going to show much about this camera really, but that's okay. It's not a big deal. Yeah, and you guys are being pretty quiet. That does not make the stream that much more fun, you know. So you guys got to chat it up. It's not the type of stream where I rule the roost. So anyways, yeah, so Mark, you also missed me talking about the fact that I burnt out my NeoPixels on my stealth burner there. I mistakenly threw 24 volts through the wrong pin and basically fried those things. And I'm not the first, and I'm sure I'm not the last to do that, but that's something you definitely want to keep an eye on when you're working on things. What else is new? I don't know. What else is new? Let's see. I haven't had problems with my driver on the tool head overheating so far. If I do, I'll just connect the extruder to the main board directly. Yeah, you can do that. I think actually John Bima probably has some information about that. He's got some opinions on some of those CAN bus boards specifically, and I don't recall exactly which ones are better than others. I do know some are kind of referred to as complete crap versus some other ones, but you know, that's just one thing. On the other printer that we're going to rebuild once we start that stream, probably again late summer, we're going to put CAN bus on that other 2.4 to bring that up to an R2. It's going to be one of the upgrades we do on that. So, and I don't even recall because of what I missed out here in the beginning when I was talking and nobody was here. But that's actually going to be a pretty decent size series of videos, is me busting down my other 2.4, looking for wear parts, looking to see what's broken down a little bit, see what needs to be replaced, see what needs to be lubricated, see what parts maybe are starting to fail after about 2,500 hours worth of print on it. I know that the first layer, Rich, is also rebuilding a 350. I don't know what his time frame is, but I think it'd be pretty neat for us to compare, especially if that printer doesn't have as much time on it or if it has more time on it, just so we can kind of get some insight as to what happens over a period of time of printing. So that's going to be basically a teardown of that 2.4 from full up use all the way down to the nuts and bolts to upgrade it with, you know, pretty much everything that I put on this printer plus CAN bus, plus sensorless homing, and a couple other things like that. Some things I didn't want to do on this printer just because I wanted to make sure I had a very well functioning printer, and some of those things I don't trust, like CAN bus and sensorless homing. But yeah, let's see here. Good to know I'm going to be adding them to my 2.4 next week along with Tappan Stealth Burner. Mark, are you talking about the CAN bus, or what are you adding to your 2.4? I know I'm not the first. Tesla, thank you. I know I'm not the first one to do it, but it's still embarrassing. Can the backers be added somewhat easily after the fact, or should I work them into my initial build? Backers can be added. They're probably, out of everything on the printer, they're probably one of the easiest things to add, and I think that's probably what made them very popular as an upgrade. I'm still out on whether or not they make that much of a difference on the printer. And you know, I got a couple different reasons for that, but I definitely think there's something you could add at any point in the future on the backers because they literally just get screwed into the extrusions in places where there's nothing currently. The only one that kind of sorta, let me look here, let me get this over here. The only one that kind of sorta has any impact is the one that's being blocked by everybody's names. Hold on. I can make that go away. Let's do, boom. All right, yeah. Sorry, folks. Now it's being blocked by something else. Anyways, so flip that up. So the only thing that's kind of blocking that is your cable chain. The cable chain, basically you'll have to unscrew it off of that, probably unscrew it from here, pull your cabling off, and then you can put that back on too. But the other one's on the back of your X gantry. The other one's on the other side, which has nothing on it. So very, 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 very easy to add in the future if you wanted to. Before we break things here. All right. Let's go back to this camera. Let's see here. What size is my build? This build right here is a 300. 300 is the most popular size built. 250, we can get into that stuff too at some point, but 350 is on the bigger side of what this setup is kind of able to do. I've seen people do them upwards of 400 or so. You could do bigger than that. You could even probably go up to 500 doing your own custom build. But at some point your belts start to get a little bit long. Your motors start to get a little bit weak for the size of the printer you're building, and a lot of things kind of start to kind of shake out. So there's a reason why the Voron team decided with 250, a 300, and 350. On the side of a 250, honestly, I probably would not build a Voron 2.4 250. I don't think it's really worth it. I think this is more of a larger format because you have a really rigid cube structure around it. I think you could probably do something a little bit cheaper and easier if you're going to do a 250. Let's see here. What size bed? I like playing around with the sensorless homing just to see if it could work. I see a lot of people struggling with that. So yeah, poor boy. Let's talk about that for a second. The sensorless homing. So for those of y'all that don't know what sensorless homing is, it's basically homing your tool head, your printer, without having any end stops, without any switches, whether it be optical, physical, or magnetic of any sort. And the way that that works is basically by the stepper driver reporting the amount of current it's using. And once it gets to a certain point, because it's stalled, it starts pulling a lot of current, and then it knows that basically it's reached its end point. So the tricky thing about that is getting that number just right, because you don't want it to sit there and jam up your belt, maybe skip teeth. But at the same time, you don't want it so loose that, you know, if you're making quick movements, if you're printing at high speed and your accelerations are pretty high, you don't want that to false a switch or a home to think it's already reached the end and kind of screw with it. One of the things I'd like to try with sensorless homing is using it not for the actual sensorless homing, but using it for basically detecting whether or not the printer has hit a portion of the print on the bed. I don't quite know if I'll be able to do that, but it's something that's there. I think there's something to be said there, because we basically have, an additional input, if you will, for our printers for every single step motor that we have on the printer. So that's more information that we can bring into the software to kind of do things with. So that'll be interesting to see what people start doing with that. My idea of seeing it for, like contact with printed parts is just one idea, but I'm sure there's other ones as well. But it's very interesting on how that works. And I do agree that it's going to be difficult, and some people do have some issues with it. Other people seem to have no issues at all with it. I tend to be relatively gentle with my printers, and I don't necessarily like the idea of stalling a stepper motor to be able to tell it's reached its end stop. I've also never had an issue with an actual physical switch. I know some people have had issues with switches. I don't know why they've had issues with switches. I don't know if they're cheap switches. I don't know if they're installed improperly or what, but physical switches tend to work pretty good for me. And they're good for, tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of cycles, which is a lot of printing, especially when it's just counting the homing. 300 is a good size. I do agree 300 is a good size. 350 is also a good size. especially if you want to print an Nevermore Max. That's quite the thing. If you don't know what a Nevermore Max is, it will be going on this printer eventually as soon as I figure out how to get it printed. But basically it is a large Nevermore that sits on the back of the printer as opposed to underneath the bed, and has a crap ton of carbon inside of it so that it lasts a little bit longer. It's also kind of a sealed system to the printer, so you're not losing any of that hot air. So it's kind of like the same as the Nevermore that goes on the inside of the printer, but it's sitting on the outside of the printer. It's really interesting. But the problem is that the main portion of that frame is just, I think it's $295 at the base of it, and then it has like screw nubs that come out that are 300. So being able to print that on a 300 by 300 is very difficult. I've seen pictures and photos of people using Kapton tape on the sides of their beds to stop it from peeling up off the magnet and things like that. It's nothing I want to deal with. Definitely, I think you need a 300 or 400 bed to do it until maybe somebody modifies those files so you can print it in multiple pieces and put it together. I asked the Nevermore, the person that does the Nevermore, if they consider doing that. They said no, but you never know, right? Let's see here. I'm using EBB36 on my Trident connected via USB instead of CAN bus. CAN bus and USB are very similar. USB is newer than CAN bus for the most part. I don't know if that's a 100% true statement, but USB obviously in the computer world, Universal Serial Bus has been around a long time. CAN bus was kind of introduced in the automotive industry. I actually use CAN bus in my day job as well. Not in the automotive industry, but they're interesting things. Basically a 2-wire system for data. You know, you have your transmit and your receive, and then a terminating resistor if you have an endpoint. Actually, you know what? My solar system also uses CAN bus to monitor the batteries. So CAN bus is used in a lot of places. V24 is 600 by 600, but that is bigger everything. Yes, Nick. Hey, I didn't know you snuck in here. So let's talk about the 24 real quick. So if you haven't seen the 24, it's basically a Voron 2.4 on steroids, jacked up. And it actually, the way they're getting that 600 by 600 is by using multiple beds. And I was thinking about this the other day. I was having a conversation with a couple folks over on the First Layer Discord. Rich, post another link if you see this or you hear this. And I was talking about possibly in the future building a 300 by 600 lengthwise printer so that it'd be easier to print some stuff, you know, in length as opposed to bigger all the way around, because it seems relatively doable. But the 24, what they're doing is they actually have 4 300 beds on it. So basically, you know, a tile pattern of 300, 300, 300, 300. And there's 2 reasons why they're doing that. One is getting a slab of aluminum that big and flat is near impossible. So having some lines in there for expansion and contraction is not a bad idea whatsoever. It's a good idea. 2 is you can have 4 separate heaters on the back there, because the amount of electricity required to heat up a bed of that size isn't what you want to plug into your standard outlet without something happening in the back end. So what they did is they used 4 separate heaters on the back of the bed, 1 for each plate, and then basically they rotate, or they heat up to a temperature 1 at a time, so that they can basically then retain the temperature, which is a lot easier than bringing it up to temperature. On top of that, the 24, being a 600 by 600, actually uses machined parts for most of the parts, as opposed to ABS parts for it. So it's not really a DIY type solution, other than the fact that I think they kind of hinted to the point where they're going to possibly have a kit out there. And this is possibly going to be the first Voron kit that actually is a full-on kit, aluminum parts for everything, extrusions, everything else like that. And I wouldn't be surprised if that actually isn't a branded kit, or maybe a light commercial to commercial kit that they put out. I think the cost on that unit is probably going to be, you know, north of $2,500, maybe $3,000. It's not going to be cheap. You pretty much take everything that you have into a normal Voron, that's US dollars, everything you have into a Voron the way you have it here, and multiply it times 4, price goes up pretty quick. Let's see here. Are you running any printers with CAN bus? I don't think I will add them to my current printer, but I see the advantage of a new printer. Any thoughts on this? I am not running CAN bus on any printer currently. I do plan on putting it on my rebuild of my other 2.4. my primary reason for not jumping in with both feet on CAN bus is resolving issues when they come up. So when you have CAN bus, you're pretty much taking your control and then encoding it and then sending it over 2 wires to a decode, and then basically putting that back out to your equipment that's at the tool head. And you've reduced the amount of problems that you can have with your actual physical wiring, because you've reduced the amount of wires. And if you lose everything, it's pretty easy to figure out that you lost your CAN bus, right? Because you've lost everything. But if you lose one thing, you then need to trace back to find out if it's something at the tool head with the board that's up there, or something back inside the printer if it's the board in there. So to me, it complicated things twofold as to finding and solving issues that you're having with your printer. And I didn't want to deal with this printer. This printer is, you know, a relatively high-end build, but at the same time, I didn't want to make it a build that was overly complicated. You know, everything that I've done extra to this particular build has been pretty much easy to do. It's nothing that's overly complicated. Again, you know, just like the question earlier about the titanium backers, can you add them in the future? Yeah, they go on pretty easy. I mean, you could put titanium backers on your printer in 20 minutes if you wanted to. CAN bus, however, it takes more coding. What you're basically doing with wires, you're now doing with code or encoded wiring. So you're complicating things a little bit. Same thing goes for USB. If you're doing a USB or CAN bus, the outcome is kind of the same. The interconnection is relatively the same as well. There are possibly some additional benefits if you do USB. For instance, my 4K camera on this printer is USB, so I could see where if you had a USB hub located in your tool head, you might be able to bring in extra USB components in there. And I can think of a ton of things that you could do via USB components because it's more readily available than CAN bus. CAN bus is more seen in the industrial markets, whereas USB is everywhere, right? Let's see here. Where did I miss? See what bigger everything wants to be up. I'm trying to build a 500 by 500. I've been having issues with things getting square. I think I figured out what's causing it. That's incredible DIY. Please do share what was causing it. We're all here to learn, and you know, if you share what you've had issues with, then maybe we can help out. And if you've solved those issues, maybe we can stop somebody else from having that issue, right? But yeah, the bigger your printer gets, the harder it's going to be to square. Again, you know, whether it be racking or just everything staying in square, or just the fact of the printer itself being big and moving around, just having a lot of wiggle room, if you will. The bigger the printer, the harder it is to keep and maintain and actually build accurately. So that's a very good point that you ran into on your own when you were building a bigger printer. Let's see, at Mark Davis agree with the statement, or add existing build, if you could break in lieu of fixing a time upgrade. Yep, I agree with that. It is very interesting. What is very interesting, poor boy? This delay, so I don't know. Did you see the 24 from Rams? Yep, I saw that. We talked about that. Thanks for your comment, David. Like the idea of CAN bus. Next build, I hope. When I do my Voron rebuild, again, that's going to be late summer, probably around August. My birthday's around August 5th. Hint, hint. Then maybe I'll have some extra money that I can spend on the extra parts that I'm going to want to get and use. And CAN bus will be going into that, and I'm sure I'll get into that both in the hardware and software portion of that. So let's see here. You turn down your motor currents before homing for sensorless. Okay, good. Could detect extruder skip. Yes, you could. It's is busy. That's a good point, and I think you're referring back to the detection back on the stepper drivers. And you make a good point there. That would be a very good use of that, would be detecting extruder skipping, because the currents would kind of peak. You'd have, as opposed to a sinusoidal wave, is you would have a what they call a sawtooth wave, where basically when you skip, it would go up and down real quick, and like that. So yeah, with the right software and the right things happening, you could definitely be able to detect that happening, or at least in theory, right? Do you have any thoughts about going 48 volt? Yes, I do have thoughts on going 48 volt. I think printers are getting faster and faster and bigger, and I think if you're building a very large printer, or a printer that you need to be very fast for some ungodly reason, then 48 is a good idea. I also think that you're probably looking at components wearing out quicker. I think you're looking at probably a much more expensive build. So would I recommend 48 volts is probably a different question, but I'll answer that as well. And that answer is no. Would I consider doing a 48 volt build? Yes, I would, but it would only be for the science of it all, right? You know, as it stands right now, our beds are AC powered, at least on these Voron printers, so those heat up relatively quickly. And you know, our print nozzles are heating up to 230, 240, even higher in literally a minute or less. So I don't know, other than having faster printer or a larger printer that requires the additional voltage, that it's that great of an idea. I don't currently plan on building a printer that would require that, but I would do it just to do it, just so we'd all know more about it. But that's about it. Other than that, I wouldn't do 48 volt. Rat rig USB over CAN 4x3 bed sound crazy. It is crazy, those 4x300 beds, but it was the only reasonable way to do it. Again, a 600 by 6. Actually, what is 600 by 600? What is that in scale of my head? So this rule is 450. So here's my head, you know, at about 100, 150. So we're looking at approximately wider than this wide screen for 600. It's about 2.5 feet by 2.5 feet for people that use the foot system, empirical. But 600 by 600 is just freaking huge. It really is. And getting a sheet or a plate of metal to stay unwarped at that size is crazy talk. You're not going to do it unless it was, I'm sure somebody come up with something, but probably have to have some type of honeycomb pattern on the inside of it. It's not going to be a plate of steel or aluminum, I should say. Let's see here. I want a V24 that has a max height of like 200 millimeters. I want a giant bed, but I never print tall. Jeremy Todd 1. Is there Jeremy Todd 2? I totally agree with you. I never print tall either. I like bigger, smaller prints that are close to the bed. Multitude of reasons. Number one is they print quicker, because the taller your print is, the longer it takes because of the additional layers. So when I can print something wide as opposed to tall, I always do that. Two is the taller you get, the more possibility you have for inconsistencies, because you're basically moving a lot of energy and a lot of weight, a lot of mass up higher in the air for a printer. So I totally agree with you. I would definitely be interested in that as well. But that being said, any printer you build, you can build, you know, lower if you really want to. You just get shorter rails and define it in the software so you don't wind up busting through the top of it. So shorter is easier, taller, a little bit more difficult. Hit the like, guys. Good idea. You go ahead and do that. I appreciate it. Actually, let me do this. I think this was seen. Hold on. This one? Yeah, right there. Right over there. Hit the like and subscribe stuff. Right? Good. Yeah, there. Thanks, poor boy. Let's see here. You guys are really chatting up. I appreciate this. Yeah. Golden Jagger called it the Gucci build. Yeah, it's not 100% Gucci, but we'll call it 90%, right? We didn't do everything. I forgot to bring the chat back up. Hold on here. Where is that? There we go. We gotta get the chat back on it. Back on. It's funny, everything's always backwards. I'm just gonna start doing both angles. You know, if it's top and bottom, I'll do this. If it's that way. Anyways, Popo channel, quick, let's change the topic to 3D printed flying machines. Nick. Hey, I haven't talked to Poor Boy about this. Actually, I did a little bit. I've built a drone or two in my day. Actually, it's two. The first one, I flew directly over the tree line and it landed someplace I don't know where. And then I built the exact same one. But one of the, this actually comes to heart for Poor Boy. One of the original reasons why I built a Voron printer is because I wanted to be able to print polycarbonate. Because I thought it'd be really important to print with something that was relatively rugged to do 3D printed aerial frames and mini whoops and things like that. Unfortunately, I got way too in depth and way too into these 3D printers to even build those frames, but that's something that I could do in the future. Maybe we can do something together when it comes to that. That'd be kind of fun too. I can get back into those brushless motors and controllers, and we can talk about HD goggles and stuff like that. I still got my, Fat Sharks. I still have my Fat Sharks in the garage. I still have my unit in the garage. I got everything out there, but I haven't done much with that. So I'm also interested in that stuff too. Let's see, what's causing my square issue? I think, okay, this is good. Pre-drilled the axis holes in the extrusion. I drilled some of the lip away. The screws grab, causing the frame to twist when tightening. Oh, okay. Well, that should have been pretty easy to find, right? I mean, so basically what you're saying is you didn't drill the holes big enough so that basically when they went through, they were catching on one corner and then causing it to jog sideways. It's good information though, right? Senseless homing is interesting. I built a basement. You're behind on the chat. Yes, I know. I'm always behind on the chat. I love my flying machines. Yes, they're very good. 4 of your printers current build plate. 4 of your printers current build plate. Yes. Yeah, so basically, yeah, it's a good way to say it. 4 of those. So what about 6 heads? 6 heads? 6 tool heads? Why would you do that? I think Fabrico made a custom spring steel plate for it. Yes, they did, according to the information I saw. I can't imagine, I mean, one of these things costs a pretty decent amount of money. You know, I can't even imagine what this would cost 4 times the size. But just like anything else, I think we're starting to see some of that product, some of those things come down in price a little bit. I mean, there's still only 2 directions things can go with when you're going with 3D printers, and as it becomes more and more mainstream. Things like spring steel plates have come down in price quite a bit. I think they're either going to continue to come down in price, or we're going to see some new technologies come out, and then they're going to definitely jump down in price. So we'll see. 24 inches by 24 inches. Is it really only 24 inches by? Let me see. Let me see. Yeah. Yeah, it's about that. 2 foot by 2 foot, yes. Let's see here. Tesla Freedom units. Yeah, I guess. DBR it. How's it going? Everything's going well. Welcome to the stream. We're good ways through it. We're just talking back and forth here. Hey, how much tape measures sold in the US are imperial only? That's not always true. You can find, if you look really hard, yeah, that's not always true. I don't know if it's gonna focus on that, but you can find tape measures that have both, even here in the United States. I find it way easier when you're trying to be accurate to use the metric system than the imperial system. So, let's see here. Reprinted hot ends for polycarbonate. I reprinted my hot ends for polycarbonate carbon fiber. I've done that too. Actually, David, I'm interested in knowing what your experience was with that. This is actually a polycarbonate afterburner fan shroud that I printed a long time ago. And it's rugged as all hell, and I never really had to use it, but I was worried about melting these, because one of the big things people were having problems with back a year or 2 ago was with the Dragon or the Slice Mosquito actually melting this stuff a little bit, but I never had that problem. So let's see here. I'm a big fan of black Honey Badger PI sheets. I am as well. This one is very nice. I think PEI sheets in general are decent. I haven't met one I didn't like. I've met some that seem to wear out a little bit quicker than others, but they all are pretty good. I'd say the biggest difference I see between them is the type of texture on them. Some of them a little bit finer than others, but I don't think that has anything to do with the printing. I think that has more to do with what your final product looks like on the bottom. I tend to like the textured bottoms on my prints as opposed to the flat ones. So, yeah. You were using your head to compare. Oh, yes. Okay. Getcha. Yes. I'm working on Stealth Burner Bamboo hot end rebuild. Thinking about streaming that tomorrow. Working on Stealth Burner Bamboo hot end. So you're going to put a Stealth Burner on your bamboo. Why? Other than, let me guess, repairability. That's the only reason I could think of that you'd want to put a Stealth Burner on a bamboo. Because I hear that getting parts for bamboo is relatively hard. So, yeah, Let me know if that's the reason. If it's not, I'm really interested. If it is, I like to know I'm right. Because I have both printer, because I have both printer, one hot end. Okay. I don't think it really matters that much, does it? Steve Build showed build plates 600, 600, 450 by 450, all the way down to 120 by 120 V0. It's crazy to see them side by side. Well, Steve did it. Why can't I do it? I don't have the 450 by 450, but I can, for people that care, this is actually a custom build-it basement by KB3D PEI bed. I don't know how well that's showing up in stream, but basically that has a laser etched logo on it. And this is a 120 by 120 V0 PEI sheet, same thing. And actually on these KB3D ones, one thing I do like about them, if you have a strong enough magnet, is they are PEI texture on both sides. So the negative to that is they're a little bit thicker, and you know, obviously your magnet needs to go through PEI on whatever surface you put on that, so you need a decent magnet. The positive side is you have one sheet now that probably for an extra, you know, couple bucks, if you screw up one surface, you can flip the thing over and you have another PEI. And that's on the 300 as well. So double side on that one. So 300 and a 120 next to each other. Hard to see, they're black on black, but basically that's I almost said a Pi Zero. That's a Voron Zero versus a 2.4 300 build. So yeah, that is interesting to see what the difference is. And then if you went to a 600 by 600, it'd be pretty much the same as seeing what you just saw with that. So this 300 size would look a lot like this 120 on a 600 bed. It'd only be slightly different, you know, in the amount of differences between the two. Let's see here. I don't know why we're talking about Milwaukee. The tools has 6-inch dual marked Home Depot in the US. Okay. Metric, yeah, metric is much easier and accurate. Yeah, it's much easier to move a decimal point than it is for most things than it is to freaking do fractions, right? Because we have both printer. Yeah, I got that. Polycarbonate carbon fiber has been good for the hot end. It doesn't take any significant load, so no worry of cracking. So I wasn't really worried about this ever cracking. And you know, as long as you print with enough, that goes for any filament you're printing with. Cracking usually comes across, you know, or with the layer lines, and it's usually caused by not printing at a high enough temperature. The biggest issue with polycarbonate is the fact that it takes an extremely high temperature to print it. So I guess that would be an issue possibly, but if you print at a high enough temperature, you should be good, right? Stealth bird or anything on anything equals ninja mode. Yes, it's a wee sheet. Yes, it is a wee little sheet compared to the other one. Yep, yep. Hey, it's Golden Jaguar. And he finally showed up. Nobody tell him what we were saying a few minutes ago. I don't want him to know or let the cat out of the bag about that, right? So everybody hush hush on what we were saying about Golden Jaguar. I am all caught up. Very, very cool. Yeah. Just in time. Jose Fierro is saying hi to Golden Jaguar. Everybody say hello to Golden Jaguar if you could. Golden is one of my good 3D printing friends. He kind of rounds out a quadrant. For all of y'all that don't know, and I'm sure that most of you do, Golden Jaguar is the one-spot shop you want to go to. You want to check out his channel if you are having trouble with anything having to do with software in terms of your Raspberry Pis or I forget what the other, Rockwell, things like that. He basically has been able to find places to get things to run Clipper that should not ever have run Clipper. I mean, he's using Android TV boxes. He's using all this stuff to be able to do the things he needs to do. So pretty awesome over there. Yeah, no, we weren't really talking about you. I was just messing with you. Shh. Go and tell him. Makes my army of printers look weak. You guys, thank you for the warm welcome. Yeah, so no, we've just been talking back and forth, you know, talking about different things. We were talking about the Voron 24, you know, and if you got an opinion, Golden, go ahead and throw it in there too. We were talking about CAN bus, and you know, we actually, you know, one thing we did talk about that had a lot to do with you actually was centralist homing. We were talking about that a little bit. We're talking about what my next big project is going to be, which is a rebuild of my other 2.4, and what I'm going to do with it. Happy I catch you. Happy you're here. Right? We're just hanging out. It's a chat session. Golden Jaguar knows how to make things look cool and go fast. Yes, that is very true. He pretty much has themed every single one of his printers. And he owes Rich at least one 30 or two 30-minute sessions to help him get his printer up to snuff. We've been working on some things with that. Just catch you up. Golden Jaguar is supposed to help the first layer speed up his Voron build that he had, because he has a competition with another YouTube guy, DeWitt 3D, all of them good channels, by the way. DeWitt's bringing his P1P to a maker fair, and the first layer is bringing a Voron 2.4 R2 to a maker fair, and they, oh, it's going to be back with food in about 35 minutes. They are supposedly going to have a competition to see who can print more quickly. So Golden Jaguar is supposed to help the first layer speed up his printer so we can beat the pants off of a P1P, which we'd all like to see, because, you know, these are things we build versus something we buy. It's just kind of neat, right? Let's see here. Been missing your streams. Golden Jaguar. I know he's been busy, right? Yes. Exactly, Nick. So he can smoke DeWitt 3D Canada. Yes. This week, I miss you guys. Yes. It's fun stuff. All right. Well, I don't know. I've caught up with my stream chat. We've talked about this more in a little bit. We've looked at some build plates. What else do you guys want to talk about? I mean, it's a wide world open here. I'm probably going to go for another, what? Let's see, we've been going now for about an hour and 20 minutes. So we'll go for another 10, 15, 20 minutes if you guys want, and talk about whatever you want. We already talked about the Voron 24, which is kind of neat. Did you guys also, did you see the E3D new nozzles they have coming out? They're actually having a high flow coming out pretty soon for those. Those are pretty neat. I did finally get my E3D Revo Obsidian with the X in it nozzles. These look pretty cool. I got my 0.6 and my 0.4. That's my 0.4, is my 0.6. I haven't used them yet. I'll probably do a little video on those when I do use them to see if they work just as well. I mean, they should work exactly like the brass, because these are just a coated nozzle. I assume they got the coating on the inside and the outside, because if it was just on the outside, then it's basically not worth anything, because that's not what the filament is going through. But they should work relatively the same as the standard brass nozzle that they have out, but it'd be nice to be able to compare those two. I also have another video coming out soon, actually probably in the next day or so, with that Creality hot end, the Spider, that I did an unboxing for last video stream. I got that from Creality. It sent it over to me for me to test with it and whatnot, so it's gonna be interesting to do some testing with that. I'm gonna do that on a video for you guys too. Let's see here, any LDO kit sellers to avoid? The only LDO kit seller I would avoid is one that doesn't respond to you, or I don't know anybody in particular, but in general in the 3D printing community, I think for the most part, and everybody speak up, because everybody will have opinions. And, you know, one bad experience isn't worth shunning somebody off forever, but if multiple people here have had a bad experience with somebody, it'd be good to know that. So if you've had a bad experience with somebody, go ahead and let Run know about that. But what I will tell you is, in my experience, I've never had a bad experience with a 3D printer reseller. I've had lots of conversations with KB3D. I've worked with Fabrico. My preference is KB3D here in the United States. I've always had good relationship with those folks. I would say try to buy from a reseller that's closer to you than further away, just for shipping reasons. Obviously, printing all the parts for a large scale 3D printer, whether it be a 300 or a 400 or 250 or whatever the heck it might be, is going to be costly. So if you can get it near you, that's good. Prices for them are pretty much the same across the board. If you're, talking about within the same country, if you're in a country and they're in a country. So yeah, I don't have anybody particularly you want to stay away from 100%. Or favorite. My favorite is KB3D. Chris over at KB3D. So, the reason why Chris is my favorite, and actually that's a little bit of a double-edged sword, because I will tell you that I am very, very, very impressed with Fabrico. And I have found that their honey badger stuff, whether it be the PEI beds or the linear rails that they sell, are very, very, very schnookum. They're very good. I don't know that there's anybody that makes anything better than those definitely for the money. Chris over at KB3D, he's got some special stuff that I like this double-sided PEI bed. He's also worked with me to do a lot of custom stuff, and there's some people on here that haven't been here before, and I feel like I show this every stream, but just because there are some new people here, I will show you something about, what's going on this printer. And it's going to look backwards to you because I haven't taken the paper off the other side of it. But Chris basically has worked with me as a seller, but also as a maker himself, or at KB3D, to do laser etching on my panels. This will be the side panel on the printer here. So it's going to have my Build It Basement logo on both sides. It's going to have that Voron piece on the back there with the artwork for there. And then it's going to have, I had him put his logo on one of the doors on the front too. So that's those couple things, the good relationship that you have with somebody, and their ability and their availability to be able to do some custom stuff for you is probably one of those things I definitely look out for, especially if you want to do something fun, something that's a little bit different than everybody else. There's some documentation 2.0 shows the physical location of the corners. It may help the gantry leveling equation, or perhaps eliminate the transit around the bed plate every so often. Is there some documentation on 2.0 that shows the physical location of the corners? It may help. Physical location of the bed or of the corners themselves. I'm not quite sure what you're looking for there, Chuck. I love the Revo MK3 Plus S Plus. Bondtech Moon XL, all great parts, all not the cheapest parts out there too. So that brings up a good point, Lawrence. So if you're using good name brand parts, chances are you're going to have a good experience. It comes down to, like, Bondtech's a great name. Obviously, E3D is a good name, a great name. Moon's a great name too. So if you're buying really good parts, you're going to pay good money for them, and you're probably going to wind up with a good end result. The trick as, a maker or somebody that wants to build something is kind of finding that balance, because a lot of times you can find parts that work nearly as well, or if not as well, as some of those brand parts, but for a lot less money. And for some of us, it comes down to being able to print, or build one printer versus being able to build two printers, or being able to build a printer now versus being able to build a printer in 3 months from now. So if you can buy high-end, good quality parts from known brands, do that. If you're a little short, you're gonna have to do more research, you're gonna have to spend more time. Any way you cut it, it's going to cost money. Whether your time is what you're investing, or if it's your money you're investing, it both equates to time, money, it's the same thing. Okay, so drop shippers. Avoid drop shippers. Okay, yes, that's a good point. Yes, I would say avoid drop shippers. I would avoid eBay. I would avoid, you're not going to find I don't believe you can find an LDO kit on Ali or AliExpress. You will find some FISIC kits. My first Voron 2.4 build was not FISIC, but a FormBot kit. And I have to say, I know it's not the popular response, but I have to say that my Formbot kit had no problems with it. The parts are all good. It has well over 2,000 hours of print time on it. Any issues I had, I feel would have happened with any printer I would have built. Nothing was specific to the parts. The parts definitely were not the best parts out there, but they were plenty good enough for what it was doing. Any hints on if you like the Spider hot end? Yes, that's a hint. Yes. I'll tell you a couple things I like about the Spider hot end without, hopefully still watch the video, but one, it's a drop-in replacement for either the original Creality hot end, or if you've put a micro Swiss on yours like I did, it replaces that. So my current combination I'm running on that printer is a Spider hot end with a micro Swiss direct feed. So get rid of the Bowden tube on that. And let's see, what other things can I say about it? It heats up much quicker than either the micro Swiss or the factory. It is an all metal hot end. It has nothing wrong going for it other than the fact that it's on the higher end of cost when you compare it to other parts for Creality, especially like an Ender 3 or an Ender 5. You know, you can get an Ender 3 for a couple $100. Spending almost $100 for a hot end just kind of is a little bit wonky, but it's one of those major upgrades that I think definitely would be important if you wanted to upgrade your printer. So let's see here, USA South, easy Southeast. Assuming favorite, that Fabrico. If you're in the Southeast, Fabrico's the way to go. They're right down in northern Florida, central northern Florida. They're a stone throw away from Golden Jaguar. But yeah, if you're in the Southeast of the United States, I think Fabrico's a good place to go. Let's see, I'm a Fabrico fanboy. I like KB3 for wires and microfits and things like that. Yep. Yeah. Another good thing about Chris's website, kb3d.com, is if you go to wiki.kb3d.com, and this is by no means built out, but the pictures that they have in there are very good, especially if you're using Lineo products or anything like that. So if you go to wiki.kb3d.com, there's some good information on there. Deep Fred here, down here in the area. Yep, KB3 is a great guy. Yeah, Chris is KB3D. He's all of KB3D. He doesn't have employees. So let's see. Come join the dark side of 3D. Oh, Luke, I am your 3D printer. Come join the dark side of 3D printing over at Discord. We have cookies. So Rich over there is trying to get people in. And like I said before, earlier in the stream, because we are going to end this out here probably in the next 5 or 10 minutes. I invite, actually, you know what? I'm going to end this stream in about, what are we going to do? Probably about 5 minutes. 5 minutes, call time, 5 minutes. Once we get done with the stream, I'm going to be over at the First Layer Discord. We're going to be in the lounge of the Discord. Hopefully Rich is going to be there. Maybe John Bynum will be there. He was there when I last looked. And hopefully the poor boy comes in, Golden Jaguar comes in. But anyways, let's have an after party over there in the First Layer Discord. So if you haven't joined, go ahead and join that for me. LDO kits are also frequently on back order. If you look around, you can sometimes find a vendor that still wants, that has them stocked. So that's a good thing to note there. I can tell you that Chris actually has an order coming in from LDO that's shipping, and I only know this, I'm not really pushing Chris right now, but KB3D in general, just because I have conversations with them. I know that KB3D has a shipment coming in from LDO that's leaving the other side of the world in about, let's see, about a month or so. So if you are looking to get something specific from LDO, if you want, you know, basically if you're looking for something like the Space Gray, I don't know if it's still available, but if you're looking for something very specific, Chris has an order that's going in with LDO that's going to be coming to him, so it'd be a good time to jump on that bandwagon. I'm gonna jump down real quick to David. David just threw me $4.99. Hey, appreciate it. I don't usually talk at all about the super chat or anything on here, but I do have that. I recently got monetized about a month ago. But David, thank you. And what does it say? Question, did you use two-part that came with the LDO revision C? I saw you modified the board for tap. Yes, I did, David. if you shoot me an email, and my email address is on my my YouTube channel, I can point you exactly to where and what video I did. You saw the modification. I saw you modified the board for tap. Did you? Oh, did you not use the 2-part SB? I did use the 2-part SB board, and so here's something about that. That 2-part board actually has 5 volts on it and 24 volts on it. But the only good way to get the 5 volts that I wanted for tap, because the 24 volts were defunct by the time I did that, which is a good thing. A bunch of people figured out that they didn't work. And by the way, if you do have a bad tap board, these are relatively cheap. These are the opto couplers. These ones came from Mauser. I think this 5 or 6 of them I have here are like 10 bucks. So you can fix your own board. Good to know. But I did use the 2-part Stealth Burner board that came with the LDO kit. Mine was not a Rev C, mine was a Rev B kit. The Rev C kit comes with the touch screen. Mine did not come with that. And they're actually not really good. I think they package, they say it on some of the boards, but most of, like this right here, this says beta on that box. And this is actually something for LDO, I guess. Motion says Rev A. So basically they have individual revisions on each of these boxes, and it makes it a little bit confusing to know exactly what revision you have. And the only reason I know I don't have a revision C is because I didn't have that touch screen for the front to run clipper screen on. But I did use that 2-part board. I did modify it so I can get 5 volts over to a port so I could use my tap, because it was only available on a pin going out to the second board for the for the NeoPixels that I destroyed, that I smelled one night and then wondered what was smelling so bad. And I don't want to talk about that. Yeah. So anyways, thanks again, David. And thank you for making me relive the fact that I burnt out all those NeoPixels and the raspberry, I mean, not the raspberry, the rainbow barf, unicorn rainbow barf. It barfed. Let's see, I gotta go back up now. LDO kits frequently, backcoded, yep. So I have a question. Raising his hand. When I do my Ender 3 Pro to switch wire conversion, should I update the motors to something better? I think you'll be fine until you decide that you want to go faster. If you're doing the switch wire version, poor boy, I assume you have or you will be converting it also to clipper, because I think that's a much more important thing to do than to worry much about those motors. I've never had issues. My Ender 5 is about 3.5, 4, maybe a little bit older than that, years old. I've never had a motor issue with it whatsoever, so I can only assume that you won't have any issues with your motors either, unless you really try to push them. And David's saying the same thing, exactly. Stepper Online has some reasonably priced motors, Nick, that are almost as good as expensive ones at the Poor Boy channel. This is true too. And again, I show a lot of stuff, and I feel like I show the same stuff often, but there's new people all the time, right? So Steppers Online, basically that right there. This right here is a box of steppers from Stepper Online, and they look a lot like the Moon motors. They are very nice. They are very heavy. These ones right here, what are these? I forget why I even have these, to be honest. I think these would replace my AB motors, because that was on my FormBot kit. At one point, I had been convinced that FormBot kits are horrible and you should never buy one. I've since proven that wrong, I think, to myself at least. And I've never had to use these motors. So, but yes, Steppers Online is very good as well. And that's that little trick like I was talking about finding manufacturers and sellers that sell really good products at lesser prices. But you have to find them or have somebody point you in those directions. That's why we watch these videos, right? I have a FormBot 0.1 and a Physik Trident 0. Nothing wrong with that. The question is, have you had any issues with them? I'm willing to bet you probably haven't. They seem to be pretty good. Let's see here. And again, we're gonna wrap this up pretty soon here. So I'm gonna get through these chats, and hopefully you guys don't flood me or anything like that. And then I'm gonna go over to the first layer. Rich, throw another link up there if you could, because I'm too lazy to set up a chat bot. And yeah, we're having an after party over there. So let's see here. Zero issues with parts quality is very nice. Perfect. Up in Canada, we have great on time. 3DLabTech.com. I've heard very good things about 3DLabTech.com, both from the first layer as well as from other people. One thing, just keep in mind that a lot of these online 3D printer resellers, and I say resellers because they're not manufacturing parts for the most part, but some of them actually do make some parts, is they're usually one-man shows. So a good testament to whether or not you're working with somebody that is good is call them on the phone. And I know in this day and age, a lot of people don't like to call a lot of people, but if you can call somebody on the phone and they answer it and you have a quick conversation with somebody, then you can more quickly figure out if that's somebody you want to work with long term. So, you know, emails are great, chats are okay, but if you're interested in spending, you know, hundreds of dollars, if not thousands of dollars with somebody, call them on the phone, you know, especially if you're interested and you want to know, you know what that person's like, give them a call. You're probably going to talk to the one guy that works at the place and owns the place. Let's see here. We skipped back over David. We talked about that. Again, thank you, David. Tap board I got for KB3D was 24 volt. Shouldn't need to modify it. Right. When did you get that tap board? Did you get that recently, or is that a replacement for the one you had before, David? And the reason I mentioned that is Chris over at KB3D, he was selling the taps before they reworked the boards to the newer revision of them. And if you bought that from Chris at KB3D and you have one of the old ones, he will actually replace that. You don't even need to ship back the old one, but he will send you a new version of that tap board at no charge if you have one of the old ones. So I can't answer your question unless you tell me if it's one of the new ones or the old ones. And if it's one of the old ones, yes, you may have an issue. You might want to modify to use 5 volts on it. I have a pinned diagram that I put up with whooping chart up in the tap issue segment on the Discord for Voron under tap that shows what to modify on that board if you need to. And I would contact Chris and get a new board if you have one of the old ones, but you can modify for 5 volts. It is doable. That's handy to know. Gives me an option to build my own end stops. Yes. And everyone else, thank you for making this great. First time attending live. Have a great weekend. Got to run. Run. Of course you got to run, right? Hopefully I caught you before you ran away, but anyway, you got it. Hopefully we see you again, right? Let's see here. Stepper online motor, pretty good. Lots of torque. Down low, not much on high speed acceleration. It's not all about the speed until it is. Lounge, yes, there we go. Rich is over in the lounge. Zero issues caused. Dual and Jaguar here, brother. How they talk about overseas phone calls are expensive. Yes, Tessa, overseas phone calls are expensive. That's actually something good to note. Yeah, so I know down under, there's not a lot of resellers down there, but there's got to be a guy. There's got to be somebody down there doing it. And even if there isn't, what I would suggest for those overseas retailers, when you want to work with somebody, if you're in a smaller area like New Zealand or Australia, or you know, somewhere in South America, and you don't have somebody that's local to your country, as opposed to calling them, go ahead and send them an email. Ask them if there's a way that you could do a Zoom or a Google call or something like that. There's always free ways to get a hold of somebody in this day and age. I've thought about that recently. I'm in my mid-40s, and I can recall making long-distance phone calls and how expensive they are. And it's just amazing to me what we can do these days for little or no cost. So you can find a way around that. Let's see here. Poor boy, I'll see you guys. Great stream. You guys have a good night. Swing by the lounge. There we go. Recent tap board. Okay, David, if it's a recent tap board, meaning in the past month, because he stopped selling them for a while, I don't think it may be a month, but 3 weeks to a month, you should be all set. 24 volt on that. What they did is they upgraded the voltage regulator, and they also upgraded some of the dampening that's on that board. So when it gets a surge that's well above that 24 volts, it does not fry. That was the issue with the old tap boards. Yeah, recent should be new and have any issues. Thanks again. Love the content. Thank you, David. Print quality is most important. Yes. Great stream here, everyone. Great, awesome. Thank you. Discord is free. That is true. Discord is free. Voice over IP, service apps, do long distance calling, free usually. Exactly what I said, incredible, thank you. Tesla Australia is nearly the same size as the lower US 48 states. Totally agree with that, but on the map they always make it look small. And when I said smaller, I meant probably population density than anything else. If you want to talk small, we can talk about New Zealand, right? That's a little bit smaller. I actually have a cousin that's from Canada that's currently in New Zealand. He's been there for about 2 years. And I don't talk to him too often because pretty much only from like 6 a.m. till like 9 a.m. my time can I talk to him. Other than that, it's too late, too early. It doesn't work out very well. So right now, I'm guessing, Tessa, that is probably a little bit past dinner time for you, based on what I know. So yeah, so, yep, yeah. Well, population size is what it comes down to when you have a retailer. I didn't necessarily mean land mass, but yeah. So anyways, yes, we are going to button this one up. I appreciate everybody stopping by. I always, it's 8:42 a.m., really? Oh, it's dinner time here. What am I thinking? That's why I'm hungry. But anyways, yes. So I thank everybody for stopping by. If you have questions and you want more information, by all means, reach out to me via email, leave a comment in a video, leave a comment in this video. If you're interested in doing some type of live thing, whether it be with voice only or voice and video, leave a comment here. Preferably email me. Again, my email, kerm@builditbasement.com. It's on my YouTube channel. That way we'll have each other's email address so we can actually have a bi-directional conversation and kind of schedule something, which I can't do in the comments really unless you want the whole world to see it. But anyways, I really appreciate everybody's time. It's been fun talking to everybody. I plan on doing this again another week or two. I will be releasing multiple more videos on the Clipper configuration as well as that spider video for the Ender 3, 5, Creality, whatever you have. And with that, I'm going to say good evening, good morning, and have a good rest of your whatever time of day it is. Thanks.